Are you someone that has a hard time feeling your glutes? No matter how many bridges or donkey kicks you do, you can't feel those glutes. Hi, I'm Dr. Melissa, and in today's class, we are going over swapping this for that glute exercise to feel true activation. Go grab your mats and let's do this. If you happen to have some blocks, maybe a light weight or a ball, go ahead and grab that. And before we get started, I just want to go over the biggest mistakes that I see with my clients. You are not alone in not being able to feel your glutes fire up no matter what you're doing. And this is because our glute muscle, and when I'm talking about it today, I'm primarily talking about the glute max muscle in the back. So in order for this muscle to activate, it needs to be able to extend. So move backwards and rotate out to the side. So that's the main job of the glute max. In order to be able to fully lengthen that muscle, we need to go in the opposite directions. So we need to be able to flex and rotate inward. Now, this inward rotation is one of the biggest things that I see missing when I'm working with someone. So if you want to take a look, you can go ahead and test it out. A great way that I love to test internal rotation is laying down on your back. You can place a block or a pillow in between your knees, and then you'll squeeze the block and just slide your feet out towards the side. And we're getting that internal rotation, that rotation inward from the thighs. So it's not just moving the ankles, but this inward rotation. Our hip is in that bent flexed position, and seeing if one side is different from the other. So if you have one side of your glute that's harder to activate than the other, this could be one of the contributing factors. And really working on internal hip mobility can help fire up those glutes. The other thing that I like to look at is if our glutes are too tight, especially the rotator, the deep hip rotator. So maybe you notice that your foot's always turned out towards the side, or you're someone that squeezes and tucks your pelvis. These muscles out here get really tight. So doing some myofascial release work to help loosen those up first, and then trying some glute exercises to see if it feels better. So let's just test this out. Come down onto your back. We're gonna come into just a bridge. I want you to exhale, press, lift those hips. And you might have heard this in classes. I definitely used to use this phrase until I learned more about it, that like give your glutes that extra squeeze. Squeezing more does not necessarily mean more glute activation. Our glutes should just work automatically for us as we're moving into that motion. So just exhale, press into your feet, lift those hips up, check and see. Do you feel one side versus the other? Is it just going into your back? So now we'll work on those rotators. We'll take the ball, place the ball along those glutes. We'll start on the left side. You'll just bring your ankle to your knee. Maybe you rock side to side. You can push the knee away. Pull the knee back in. Push that knee away and pull in. So this is one of the techniques I like to use, and then go and try that glute exercise again and see if it feels any different. And if not, it's moving on. It's something else that could be going on, like that hip internal rotation that I mentioned. Use your breath. Move in and move out. 30 to 60 seconds with this is just plenty. If you want to pause and do the other side, you definitely can do that. But let's come back to the bridge. Exhale, blow out candles, press, lift those hips up. So we're driving the hips towards the ceiling, or driving your pelvis up, not thinking about squeezing and this big tuck. And just see if it feels any different. If so, awesome. If not, I've got plenty of other stuff to go over. The last thing that we want to consider when getting our glutes to fire is the connection of our foot to our glutes. So for the glute muscle to be able to get into that lengthened position so we can build true strength, we have to have mobility and contact with the foot with the ground. So if you notice that your foot isn't able to rotate and moving in and out of that pronation, supination, so pronation when our foot gets flatter, supination when the arch comes up, that's an issue we can work on, is addressing the mobility in our foot. Because when we're coming into that hip flexion, internal rotation of the thigh, the foot's going to come closer towards the ground. As we come back up, the foot's going to supinate, come up. Our thigh and shin starts to rotate outwards, that external rotation, and our hip starts to extend. So we need to have this movement chain from the hip to the foot and the foot to the hip to have that glute activation as well. So maybe you've been told over and over, seen the exercises. I do them, clamshells. Maybe you're just, I'm doing all the glute exercises. I can't feel these. Let me show you exercises that are going to lengthen your glute. Here, we're just squeezing and holding it tight. So what I would swap this out for is coming up into a split stance. My left foot is in front. My right foot is back. I don't have a massive stance. If we are more upright, we're gonna feel more quad dominant. We wanna have a slight hinge at our hips to come into that bending hip motion, so that flexion of the hip. And then you'll slowly lower the hips down. Think of taking that left sit bone and push your left sit bone towards the wall behind. Exhale, drive the foot into the ground, press, come back up. So we want that mound underneath the big toe, the outside of the foot and the heel, coming closer towards the ground as we inhale, lower down. Exhale, drive the foot, push, come all the way back up. Another big thing I see with a lot of people is this extra squeeze and tuck at the top of lunges, at the top of step-ups, squats. We don't want to tuck and squeeze underneath at the top again. That squeezing does not mean better glute activation. Getting the hips back. Inhale, lower down. Exhale, drive into that foot, come back up. So another big connection. Glutes and the pelvic floor are like BFFs. So if we can get better activation in our glutes, we're gonna get better control with our pelvic floor. So just do a couple on this side and see what you feel. Moving in and out. Now we can add on with this split lunge, coming into a little bit of that internal rotation of this front thigh. So how we do that is if we squat, come down, send our sit bone back, you can take your right hand to the outside of that left leg and then drive into the front foot, come back up. Inhale, lower down, right hand comes closer towards the outside of that left foot. Inhale, come back up. Just so you can see me facing forward. And you can also use a weight to load as well, but make sure you can feel that lengthening, that activation before you start loading it. We'll go down, rotate off to the side, drive into the foot, come back up. Drop those hips down and drive, come back up. So I love this split lunge with that slight rotation inward to really feel the lengthening of the glutes. So that's swap number one. Swap number two is coming into a step up. So I'm gonna use a yoga block today. If you have a step in your house, if you have one of the exercise step ups, you could also use stepping up onto a chair or a low bench or block. You can always go next to a wall. We're not testing your balance. We're wanting to feel those glutes fire up. So do what makes you feel comfortable and make sure you have support nearby. I'm gonna start with that left foot again. My left foot is coming up onto the block. I'm really setting my foot, mound of big toe, outside of foot, in the heel. I'm gonna hinge forward over that front thigh, drive into that foot, come all the way up. But again, no tucking and squeezing underneath. As I go back, we're hinging, send that left sit bone back, drive into the foot, come back up. Inhale, lower down. Exhale, push, come back up. You're exhaling like you're blowing out those candles. Inhale back, exhale, drive, lift up. Inhale down, exhale, lift up. And just see what you notice on this left side with that glute. Really think of the sit bone going back to lengthen. You can just test it out on the other side. Same position, ground down through the foot, slight lean forward, exhale, come up. Inhale back. Same thing. You can grab a weight in one or both hands to load. Sit bone goes back and come back up. Nice job. And moving that off towards the side. And then the third swap that I love to do. So we're gonna keep this front leg straight, pressing down in towards the ground. You have a slight bend in the front leg, and that right leg is just toe tapping behind. So a single leg deadlift, but this right foot is toe tapping, taking a little bit of the weight. It's all about the hinge at the hips. We're gonna send our hips straight back behind. Inhale, lower down. Keep your back nice and flat. You don't wanna round through your back. Exhale, drive into the foot, pull yourself back up. Inhale, hinge at those hips, sit bones going towards the wall behind you. Exhale, drive into your foot, come back up. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see with this is when you're coming back up, watch my low back here. People tend to kind of tuck and pull from their low back. You want your glutes doing the work, and that's where you push into the ground, come all the way back up. Inhale, hinge forward. Exhale, drive back up. Let's switch to the other side and see what that feels like on the right. So we'll press through the right foot, spread those toes, and I'll show you how we can load. So I've got the weight in my left hand, left leg kicking back, slight little bend. I'm gonna take my right sit bone, drive my right sit bone back. Exhale, push into the ground, come back up. I'm not using my low back, I'm using my glutes. And those hamstrings come all the way up. No tucking, thrusting forward. We're going straight up. And you'll think of, you can use your hand, you can use a weight. It's sliding down the front of that right leg. And then you blow out those candles, come back up as you drive the foot down. Inhale, lower down. Exhale, drive back up. Inhale, lengthen out through those glutes. Exhale, pull back up. Let's try one more on this side. Exhale, come back up. Nice work. So those are 3 swaps that I love to do that really gets into lengthening those glutes. In order to lengthen the glutes, to strengthen them, we learned that we need to have a number of different things. The first thing we checked out was internal rotation of our hips. Can those hips rotate inward? And if you notice with the test that we did up against the wall that you're limited on one side, that's a great exercise to do to work on that hip internal rotation. Plus there's also tons of other videos that you can check out, and I'll put them in the description box below. The other thing we looked at was those deep hip rotators, the external rotators, if they're too tight, doing some type of myofascial release with the ball. Did that help improve that glute activation? And then we took a look at our foot. What's going on with the foot? Does our foot have good contact with the ground to be able to move in and out of pronation and supination so that we can get that rotation coming all the way up the leg for lengthening out those glutes? If you enjoyed learning about different ways to strengthen your glutes, go ahead and check out our Aptify, where we have tons of trainings like this, exercise videos, live monthly Q&As where you can ask me questions, and so much more. And you get a free 7-day trial. So go ahead and check that out. If you're wanting other resources, also you can go ahead and check out our description box down below. Keep up the good work. Until next time.